Hello everybody, this is Christian from Blue vs. Orange TCG coming back to you with another video. This time, we're going to be talking about the next monthly event going on in the Alphatron Protocols Tournament Series. It is going to be in October. It is the Full Con event that's going to be in and off the fourth season here for the Alphatron Protocols Tournament Series. Pretty excited about this, mainly as a redeeming factor for me. It's been a few months since we've had a Full Con event. I believe it was actually the first monthly event that was started for Season 4. And I went in and I went 0-2 drop. I did pretty terrible. I did terrible that event there. So hopefully coming off of the high of winning the August event, or not the August, the September event, the T1 event, I'll hopefully do a little bit better. And to kind of go along with that, I'm going to be discussing some of the things that I'm excited to be working on for testing that I'm working on right now for the next event coming up here. So. Just wanted to show you some of the deck lists that I'm interested in, ones I'm excited about, and reasons why I'm interested in testing this for the event. So without further ado, let's get into that. So this is the first list I'm going to show you. So this is some inspiration behind this list. This was based off of a top 8 list from Aquari, who is running Perceptor and Starscream. Well, I was really interested in trying Perceptor with Orion Pax, and I know there's a little bit harder ways to kind of build that team because you can't have like a health head because you have to have no Decepticons on your team for Orion Pax. And so what we're working with right now is we got Orion Pax here, Destined for Greatness, Perceptor, Parsec as the head, as to give a 1-star head to make it 9 stars. And then we got Hover, because Hover is just a great generic 5-drop. And I think having Sturdy in Full Con event is just going to be a really good boon for going against decks like Quake, Horrible, things of that nature, the things we expect to see in Full Con. And again, these are all rough draft lists. They're not optimized in any way, I would say. But this is stuff that I was interested in testing out to see. So I really love Perceptor decks. Obviously, I've tried playing some before in terms with some success. A top 16 finish in one of the earlier invitationals with one, but otherwise this is definitely one that I'm interested in trying because I've never had like a Legend and a Titan Master deck before that I've actually tried and really enjoyed. This one's really interesting, running things like the Matrix, both Show Mastery and Skillful Display. We are mainly a blue deck, but having both of those options is really nice as boosts and kind of like this generic either draw 2 or deal 2 to an alt or combiner mode character, which is nice because Menasor is running around in the format. Of course, you don't need to. I don't think you really. The Show Masters could probably get out of there because you don't really need the draw cards because you have Perceptor. Running 8 total secret actions could probably bump that up to maybe 9 or 10 depending on where the things go. And overall, it's a pretty generic list for a Perceptor list in my opinion. I was originally also running Harpoon Guns because both Optimus Prime and Perceptor gain the extra attack because one's a wrecker and one's a leader once they rise. But all in all, I'm not sure if this is exactly the direction that I want to take this exactly. Chrome Dome actually might be a better mainboard option going in there and having a more control heavy list entirely, but this is one I'm pretty excited to test out and build to see exactly, okay, where does this kind of fall in line in the metagame here as well. So that's the first list. So the next list I'm going to be showing you today, this one is, I call it GhostDragon. This is a list that's been popularized by Soviet Bear, who's been just running rampant with this list the last few months here. This is a Snapdragon list with Ghost, Starscream, and Scourge. It's a blue-black control list. It features it does everything right. This deck has proven itself. It's super good. Being able to have a really effective blue-black strategy in the game is actually like surprisingly like really strong. Having Opportune Offensive available to you with the Ghost Starscream once he's arised is an automatic 7 Pierce 5. And you're probably going to be having a weapon thrown there like a Fusion Board. You're at 10, and you're going to be flipping Black Pips with your Bolt 2, so you're going to be at least 10% probably, which I've seen him do many times. The deck is absolutely nuts. It's really good against Autobot decks, which is something that is a consideration to go up against, mainly because with Magray being out of the format, I wouldn't be surprised to see more people wanting to try and pick up more Autobot decks, just like the previous list that we saw with the Perceptor Pax list I was showing you. I think this place is a really good place in there. It also, I think it has like a decent Quake matchup as well, mainly just because you can sideboard out the Scourge and into Huffer, giving you 2 sturdy characters, which is really good against that like really wide direct damage teams, and I think that's also like a really strong consideration for this list. It's also not too bad against Menasor. Being able to flip Snapdragon to his anti-draw mode is really good for putting Menasor off of cards, which he really needs to be to, you know, keep going. And Ghost Starscream is just such a great counter to Menasor already. There's just a lot of things that I think this deck has going for it going into the Full Con event, and I think it's a real consideration. And again, props to Sylvia Bear. I wish I know I considered getting a deck profile with him, but I know a while back he said he wanted to do one himself, so I never bothered asking. But this list is fantastic. You also get Opportunism. There's so many great whites and just black cards that you can play in this list. I can't speak more about why I love this list, and I would not be surprised if this is one of the lists I'm going to be going into the Full Con event with. So the next list, so this one is going to be a bit more of an example list. So this is the deck that kind of ran rampant at the end of last season for ATP-3, Prison Menasor. So this deck, I think, single-handedly was able to bring Menasor from T1 to Full Con only. This deck is absolutely atrocious in my opinion. It's basically a Menasor list that focuses less on dealing out really big numbers with your double action turns, and is more along with hand disruption, playing the double disruption, double disruptive entrance, 3 espionage, the counter espionage. You just do so much in this list to just keep your opponent off of cards, and because Menasor naturally kind of defends for big numbers, having that natural tough one, having access to amazing secret actions, being able to play an espionage and a secret action on your turn, and then repairing one, it had such amazing staying power, and it just kind of dominated the field when it came out. I think this is a decent list to go into Full Con. It has one of the best Quake matchups I've ever seen for a deck, in my opinion, having experienced that firsthand. But I also think this deck has a lot more weaknesses now. With Ghost Starscream and a lot of other legend characters now running around, especially Ghost Starscream in Full Con, this deck really, I think, just gets really chewed on, for lack of a better word, against those style of decks. So like a deck that I wouldn't be surprised to see more of in the Full Con events from the 1-day and the month-long that we saw was double Titan Master and a legend. So basically like either Ghost Starscream and Fangry, Infinitus, and Horrible Grax, or like Megatron and then Fangry Horrible with the assuming health heads as well. Those style of decks I think really eat away at this list, because unlike Quake, which is really focused on a ton of AoE burn, which Quake eventually does really well against, those non-burn heavy Titan Master decks, which are more like just like really strong attacker decks, now actually really eat on this version of Menasor, because it just doesn't push out enough damage, and it just was able to come back really well because of things like Show Mastery, now being able to be a draw 2, a lot of, or just being on Treasure Hunt to all of a sudden just fill your hand with a lot of upgrades, and now you have to really work yourself back to ripping that hand apart. There's a lot of things that I think is going against this version of Menasor, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it. One version that I'm actually really curious to test out for Menasor myself is an OA version. So this is my current OA version of Menasor, and I think it actually might have a better matchup against those legend characters. For one, when you attack if you happen to have the OA suite and you attack into a bot mode character before he a legend mode character before he rises, and you hit the OA, you can hit the OA on the non-legend mode character when he rises, and still swing and KO him at a kind of within combat in that way there. It's really good against Ghost Starscream because, you know, Ghost Starscream having that stealth makes him pretty harder to hit. So now you have an option to, if he arises already, you now can OA him off the board. This deck can play 2 OAs at once. I think I've seen people play OA Menasor before with reasonable success, and I've been really interested to try it ever since. One problem it does have though is against those similar like big attacker decks, you struggle against kind of keeping damage off of yourself, because if you look, we only running 24 blues, 16 oranges. We have to run a lot more multicolors here. So I think, and we're a 42 card deck. This is something that just like kind of would go down as, you know, as things get kind of chopped up in the deck list, for lack of a better word. So like, I think this deck is interesting. I think it needs a lot more work. It's definitely a very rough deck list. So for one, there's 20 upgrades. I think 20 upgrades is way too many, even for an OA version of Menasor. I think you just want to make sure that you are able to play a lot more actions and upgrade, a lot more actions in your hands than upgrades, if possible. So I think the upgrade number needs to go down for sure, and I think it needs to be even like a couple less oranges and more blues over the course of the deck. I know some people have done before, they've ran like rollout, which is just like a dead card, right? But being able to play it to get both those colors for attack and defending to kind of keep your survivability and your offense up is actually might be something worth considering for this. I originally don't like playing those types of dead cards in lists like this, but I might actually consider just trying them out. Some of the cards that are right away just kind of stand out as like, why are they here? Is like the wedge formations. Like, I'm only running 2, they can probably get out. 3 terrifying resilience seems like a lot, maybe just like 2, because the idea of this list as well is like you can OA, but you also have a lot of the tools to just beat down your opponent, which is something that I think kind of needs to happen for a successful OA deck to work. Is you need that plan B if OA doesn't work, or even just make OA your plan B once the matchup starts. So this is something I'm really excited to test about, but I'm not sure if it's exactly going to make the cut. Definitely not as is. It definitely needs some testing, to say the least. Alright, and then our last list that we're going to be looking at today is going to be the deck I was telling you about before. Legend and 2 Titan Masters. So this is GhostTitans, so this is Ghost Starscream, Fangry with Infinitus, and then Horrible with Grax. So what I like about this list is I've seen people like Ansel and Ventric play this list to really good finishes. And what I've seen from playing against them, seeing them play, is like you're very similar to a Quake deck, right? Like a lot of the characters are very similar, but you're not focused on the AoE damage, right? You're not focused on trying to burn out your opponent. Like the Horrible is there, but it's mainly there to make your opponent softer for when you attack them into them with kind of bigger numbers. Just given the fact that you can play cards like Show of Mastery, which is just straight +2 draw 2, meaning that you can get up to these really big numbers. You still play like a lot of Pierce cards because your deck inevitably does want to still be a Pierce deck to a certain degree. But I see it less as like this is an orange-black Pierce list, and more like this is an orange-black mix attack list, if that makes sense. So instead of always having like trying to get the highest Pierce numbers, this deck is focused on maximizing your attacks for what you need them, right? So you still play a lot of bold, a lot of Pierce, orange-black cards to try to get those Pierce numbers, but you mainly do that if you know you can finish off an opponent with just like your base flips in the Pierce without having to extend more resources, like having to use up like a Metallicato or a Reckless Charge and Grenade Launcher. You have that mixed option versus like if you know Pierce isn't going to get you, but a Master Metallicato and a Grenade Launcher on your Fangry, who attacking into a 9-star higher character with Infinitus has bold 3, while also having the +2 health from as you would if you had Kreb, is really, really strong. And you also just have great attackers all the way through. Like Ghost Starscream before he arises is not like a terrible attacker because he has that bold 1 Pierce 1 already built into him. He can actually get for like some decent damage through before he arises. Horrible, you know, Grax is obviously just like a straight stack stick character, and even Infinitus, he only has 2 attack, but he has that bold 1, so it's like a fusion borer. He can actually hit for like some surprisingly high Pierce numbers if he wants to, or even just like high damage numbers if that's something that you're interested in doing in the list. This is actually my second take of the list. Originally there was a lot more black pip, like just straight black pip, so like I was on like 3 Caming Crashes and Pants Power Cell. I had RR Disruptor Blades in here, but there was actually too many just straight black pips, because it became to the point where like I wanted these big attacks, but I was flipping too many like non-oranges on those attacks. That yes, I was hitting for decent Pierce numbers, but in the moments that I wanted high damage, I wasn't getting there. So now we're at 29 oranges and 15 blacks. We took out the Enhanced Power Cell for an Escape Capsule. Not like a huge fan of the card, but like I think it's warranted to at least try out, because you do get like it still does something in the list. It's not going to be like huge, but it's like it's there. It triggers Horrible. It gives you +1 attack if you need it, and it's an orange black, so it does a lot with the list is looking for. Trying to Field Communicator. Field Communicator is kind of neat with Ghost Starscream because he is a specialist and melee in his Legend mode side. So being able to like place something out the top might be kind of nice, and it's also like decent value like later in the game. If he already has a weapon, you can just play it. It gives him +1 and maybe he gets a boost off the flip. It's kind of like a free play. It is a free play, but it's usually put into a game for late game where it feels like, okay, I can just do this and I'm getting value off of it no matter what. Obviously playing the mission briefing. This is full con. A lot of these lists are going to be playing mission briefing because that card's absolutely disgusting and busted. And then if you noticed, this list isn't playing. The list itself is playing some interesting like attack boost options in my opinion. So like it's running like the Show Masteries. It's got Heated Battle instead of Belligerence, which I think is like pretty decent against like a lot of these orange decks coming in. Especially if you have like, you know, the Legend Motorized and a head popping out. All of a sudden you have 3 attackers with an extra bold 3. Some have like bold 4, bold 5 if you're Ghost Starscream or Infinitus. Great value, amazing card I think in this list. We're up on 2 Reckless Charge. I think Reckless Charge is going to be fine in this list. I need to test that a little bit more. But again, it's that same idea of like, how high of a ceiling can we get with this orange-black list? But most exciting card in my opinion that kind of emphasizes the idea of this mixed attack list is Master Metallicato. Master Metallicato is such a cool card in this list. Because you hit all 3 of those pips conditionally over the course of the game. If you swing with Starscream turn 1 and you flip this, it's a ranged pip. He's ranged, so he gets the black pip, which is good for Pierce. For Fangry and Bull on defense, it's a blue for them. And then Ghost Starscream, he gets both the orange and the blue because he's specialist in melee. Like I just think this card is so free to play in this list. I think it's absolutely incredible. That's why we play up to 6 whites. Because we're trying to see if we can get the +3, +5 range on this Master Metallicato swing. It's definitely like our highest ceiling, and even if we only get like +2 from only flipping orange blacks, it's not like it's not the end of the world, right? It's still gonna do like a decent chunk of damage. It's still similar to Show Mastery without the draw 2, and I just think this card is so cool to play in this list. Another thing that I think this list might need is it might need to go up to 41 in main board at Counter Espionage. But again, we don't want to play too many just straight blacks because we want to make sure that we're flipping a lot of oranges on attack still when we need to. I honestly I might try to fit like a 30th orange pip in here somewhere if I can. Space is looking kind of tight as is right now. I could even see a world where the Spy Satellite gets taken out of the main board, but I'm not sure if I really want to go that route. At all. I guess even like a fusion board gets taken out, just one puts it into the sideboard. But again, there's a lot of room in this list. You could just take out one of the whites probably, but this is a list. This is one of the more excited lists I have for the event. It's obviously a really popular one. It does have. I don't think it has like the best Quake matchup, so this is also not main board teched against Quake. I think if you wanted to, you're going to be playing at least 1 to 2 Hold the Lines main board and sideboard, and at least 2 absorption cores between your 50 cards, your main and your side. It's just something to consider. Yeah, and again, we're gonna do some testing with this list to see where it fills. It's different than what the other lists that ran these same characters have been using, but I'm pretty excited for it. Alright, and that's pretty much the list that I'm looking at currently. Let's see, I believe it's got a week from the date of me posting this that the event's going to be live. Really excited to see a bunch of you there. We're going to be trying to recap on this before the list, before the tournament begins, about what lists I've really enjoyed using and which ones I'm really excited about. Obviously, some of the lists that we're looking to kind of compete against is like Quake, of course. Quake is always going to be a natural threat in the full con environment. Sky Shadow's like still something to consider, but I've noticed it do significantly less well over the course of full con events just by nature of some of the things that exist now that Sky Shadow just kind of not necessarily has a harder time dealing with, but just the things that exist now have an easier time dealing with Sky Shadow. But he's still something to consider. And of course Menasor being just an always threat to the format, always existing there. And then the Legend Tightmaster decks. Those are like the 4 decks that I'm really looking at for the full con event to really be kind of like countering to consider going into it, and hopefully we do better than the last full con event. Anyway, this is just all I wanted to share with you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day. Take care.